Okay, guys. Just wanted to start. Anyone here that wasn't in my session the other day? A few. So I'm not going to be doing slides. Those of you that were in my session know that something went wrong with drivers. Rule number 1, always plug your laptop into an external monitor before you do a presentation to check it works. What can I say? I'm sorry. But I'm not going to be doing slides, but basically this is my health and monitoring demos. Hopefully the demos explain everything I explained in the slides. For those of you that have seen the slides, you should be good to go. For those of you that didn't, the slides are obviously going to be on the DVD afterwards, and come up and ask me afterwards, okay? Steve's meant to be up here to do his sort of session at the end of this, so I'll probably take it out of the room so he can get on and do that, okay? So I'm going to jump straight to demos, like I said. Here I've got SharePoint 2010 Farm, SharePoint 2010 Server here, my DC SQL box, and a Windows 7 box, okay, for the sake of these demos. So the first thing I wanted to show you was the ULS, the new ULS features, enhancements, improvements, and so on, okay? So first of all, you will see here that there's a new tool out called the ULS Viewer. How many people have seen this? A few, okay. So Microsoft announced at SPC that there's a tool, this has been available internally for quite some time now, called ULS Viewer that supports both 2007 and 2010, that enables you to look at the ULS logs in a rich way. Now, a lot of partners have had these sort of tools around for a while. This is like it's not part of the product in terms of it's officially supported. It's like an MSDN, code.msdn type tool, a bit like the SP Dispose Checker, okay? So to demo that for you, what you can actually do is you can load from ULS. So you can actually load live feeds directly from ULS. So here you can see it automatically detects that we're running SharePoint 2010. We've got 14 there. If I hit OK, what it's going to start doing is it's going to start accepting the entries that are appearing in the logs and just dynamically scrolling. So we're just real-time viewing the feed of the logs, okay, on this box. So that's straight away a pretty cool feature, right? If you actually want to load this up, point at ULS, do what you want to do to break the server, fix, look at the problem that you're trying to troubleshoot, then you can see those entries. Now, a tool itself also has some really cool features. So the first thing we've got is this smart highlight feature. So I can actually put my mouse over any item, and the items that are the same automatically highlight for me, okay? So from a troubleshooting point of view, that's quite handy to find those things, okay? Another quite cool feature that we've got here is the likes of sorting, filtering, finding, and so on and so forth. Formatting, we can actually format columns. So I can say right-click, quick formatting, auto-color column, let's go, process. And in that case, it's formatted certain columns based on what they, in this case, that's a certain entry, okay, certain worker process. Obviously, I've got multiple processes here. It will auto-format various columns for me, okay? You can actually save these off as kind of like filters, and then you can reload them. So when you come to troubleshoot your ULS logs later, you can have your same base filters and your same base formatting so that you can quickly troubleshoot in a way that suits you. Now, with this live feed feature, obviously you're using memory. This actually has a built-in tool that will shut itself down if you leave it running for too long, because you don't want this to be continually feeding in from ULS logs, right? Another key thing in the whole ULS, improvement side of things is that we can see here we've got an event log entry. And in this case, excuse the scroll bars, let me just get rid of them. We've got a 5586 database connectivity issue here. What we can actually do is we can hit the details here, and I will zoom in on this. Open the friendly view, scroll down, and you don't want the GUID at the top there. You want the correlation activity ID. And I mentioned correlation IDs. We actually push the correlation IDs into the event log entry now. So what I can do, I see an event log entry, I can take that correlation ID, copy that now, and actually search within my ULS log at that particular time for that entry, and then try and find out some more detailed information as to what is causing the problem, right? So let me just try that. So obviously I actually want to open the file that represents that particular time frame. We are looking at, I could obviously do a full filter, but for the sake of the demo, just to speed things up, we'll try and find the exact file. I think it was this one. Edit, sorry. Modify filter. Correlation, contains, we're going to say equals. paste. We haven't got it on the clipboard yet. And hopefully, he says, we didn't get it. Let's just try that again, guys. What time were we at? 2 o'clock. So it should in theory be, should be that one. My bad, opened the wrong file. So there we go. We found all the correlation IDs for that. So what's really cool there is now we've not just got the single entry that was the event log entry, we've also got everything else that's related to that, right? So that's pretty cool straight out of the box. Notice as well that the actual event ID in terms of the correlation there is 5586. And that's been highlighted red by default in the tool because it's critical. So not only are we matching the correlation from the event log to the correlation here, we're actually taking the event ID that's written here is a proper Windows event ID. Previously, it would have just been one of these random 4-digit IDs, okay? So that helps with the troubleshooting side of things quite significantly. Obviously, you can use PowerShell to do a lot of this as well. So one of the first commands I'm going to issue here is, and again, some of these are quite crude, just to get SP log event, minimum level critical. And that's just going to go off and get all the events that are flagged as critical from all my logs. Now, that's just going to go crazy because I'm going to have loads of them because this is a demo box and I've been stopping and starting it. But you can see I can quite quickly find everything in PowerShell that I want just with a very small query there. We'll stop that. The next thing I wanted to show you here is the merge SP log file command, which I mentioned yesterday. There we go. And this would take a few minutes normally, but what we're actually doing here is we're taking all the log files and we're merging them into one log file called merge.log, and we're going from a start time of the 12th of the 4th at midnight to 2 a.m. on the same day. Now, obviously, this could be multiple files across multiple servers, across multiple times. There's no limitation here. And we're saying event ID is 5586. So what I'm doing is I'm finding everything with event ID 5586 at those times. Not the best in this demo, the output, but the point is PowerShell gives you that ability to filter quickly without having to use some of these external tools. We will wait for that to finish. It shouldn't take too much longer. If I just... There we go, that's finished. So we've got a 7 meg merge.log file now. And if my VM manages to keep up, we can see everything from midnight that was a 5586 is there, right? And you know, if I were to scroll down, it would go all the way to 2 o'clock. So pretty powerful straight out of the box. Okay. The next thing is the get SP log level. Obviously, this is literally just going to show you all the log level settings, just like you can in the UI, as I showed in my presentation yesterday. So we can view what the settings are currently for each of the individual services, okay? And obviously, we can use set SP log level to set them. Again, fairly simple but effective from a scripting point of view. And finally, get SP diagnostic config. So here you can actually see, this gives us the ability, if we use set SP diagnostic config, we can see things like log max disk space usage enabled, so on and so forth. Days to keep logs 14, log disk space usage 1,000 gigabyte. We all know that that's a quirky thing in the UI that we've seen. The point is we can set these things from PowerShell as well, right? Event log flood protection, that's all there. And I mentioned that you can change. So if like a 5586 appears 5 times, it will actually say, right, this has now appeared 400 times and it won't flood all the logs, yeah? You can change how often that occurs. So is it enabled true? Threshold, 5 entries within 2 minutes means that we're going to fire off an ID, event ID that says, well, we've actually throttled this back and we're not going to flood the event logs. After 2 minutes of being quiet, will then allow that event ID to reoccur again, okay? And so on and so forth, right? So pretty powerful. Again, you can edit these things straight out of the box. Now, the next thing I wanted to show you, away from the ULS side, was actually the logging database, okay? So moving on to what would be the logging database demo, the get SP usage service command alert. So here we can see all manners of useful information, but the key thing here is we can see the usage log max space 5 gigabytes and usage cut time 5 minutes by default, logging enabled true. So what this is getting at is those usage files, those binary format files that contain the usage information that gets pumped into that WSS logging database, this is the setting, this is where you change the setting for that, okay? And like I said, you can obviously change some of this in the UI, but the point is we can do it in PowerShell as well if we need to. Get SP diagnostics provider was the next one. Oop, we will close that. So this is all the diagnostics providers, right? This is all the, not the usage ones, this is all the things like ULS provider, SQL DMV, performance, event logs, and so on. These are basically the jobs that pull that info into the logging database that's diagnostic, performance type related, and these are the ones that run with the timer jobs that do the work for us. They don't log the usage files, they're kind of direct feed into the logging database. And we can see retention 14, that's kind of dropped off the screen there. Max total size in bytes and so on. And it's a bit of a funny formatting in this build on my machine there. The point is, we can set this in PowerShell again, and you can't actually view these particular settings in the UI, so to change these, it would be a PowerShell job here. The next one, it gets a bit more interesting, I promise, is get SP usage definition. Again, the equivalent, this is for the usage stuff. So this is all the usage things that we're looking at, where it's enabled, what the retention is. And again, this says everything that we're doing. Rating usage, so all the ratings, some of the things I didn't even mention directly yesterday, search query usage, content export usage. So again, all of this gets pushed into the logging database, and we can control how long, whether it's enabled, what we want to do with that. So that's kind of the configuration side of it. So what does the logging database look like? Let's actually drill down into it. This is where it gets a little more interesting. So I'm just going to flick back over to my DC SQL box and fire up Management Studio. And we can see I've got my WSS logging database down here. I will zoom in just a second. If I go into tables, the first thing that you notice there is we've actually got partitions. So the tables are partitioned. This is actually for performance reasons. I mentioned that we were aiming for 5K IOPS in terms of write to this database. So by using partitions here, we can actually help with that a little bit. In reality, a partition maps to 1 day. Now, the retention range is 14 by default, but we tend to write 1 day's worth of data to one partition. At midnight, we roll over to the next partition, and we just kind of cycle through the partitions. The fact that we've got 31, 32 is kind of a bit weird, in my opinion. But it gives you that ability to up that figure if you want to. Now, you'll see a partition for every single thing that's enabled. If you haven't ticked those, if you haven't enabled some of those feature usage settings, these partitions won't appear, or any of the views. These get created when you tick the box, okay? So you'll find your logging database doesn't have all of this in there out of the box. You have to enable them before it actually updates the schema of it. Now, obviously, partitions are a bit useless because to query them, I'm kind of having to grab data out of them, randomly and do joins on them and so on. So we've actually, out of the box, got some nice views here, and we can do queries against these views. So NT event log, select top 1,000 rows. I will zoom in. Let's just kill that. And we can see here, we've actually got everything from the event log that's being pushed in with that diagnostics provider into the logging database, and all the information there about the source, the event ID, the category, the description, and so on. So we can mine this later on. So not only are we having to, we don't even have to archive off our logs now, because the logging database kind of does it for us, yeah? Obviously, what I personally would do is archive off the logging database as opposed to having some bespoke way of exporting event logs and so on, okay? That gives you the power to do that. Now, there is also, come back to the Object Explorer, various other entries here. So site inventory, ULS trace will see ULS, feature usage, and so on and so forth. And there are also some stored procedures in here. that we can run enum performance counters, enum request usage, and so on. We can actually just run these store procs and get it to pull out this info. Some of these store procedures are actually used for those out-of-the-box search, admin reports, and so on. So we can see what Microsoft's already using here, and we can kind of use them ourselves. Just to demo a couple of really cool examples here, we've got a performance counters one here. So now we're actually showing, with that query, the performance counter, the value, the log time, and the machine name. So we can go back retrospectively and look at what the performance was for all those counters on those boxes. So if you want to say, oh, we had a problem, we had an outage 5 days ago, it's going to be in here. You've just got to do a bit of work to pull that out. And I don't know how many of you have heard of, there's various tools that allow you to kind of take this information, put it into graphs and so on. We can pull this out and we can run that, okay? And we can play around with that. We can use Excel, we can use whatever we want to do that. Now, the next thing that's really cool to show is obviously we're grabbing SQL DMV statistics and so on. So if I execute this query, what I'm actually doing here is I'm casting the query plan as XML. So I'm actually taking the query plan, which is stored as part of in the logging database, casting it to XML, and we can see down here we've got things like total elapsed time, average CPU, and so on. But I can actually click directly on one of these entries, and SQL will give me the entire query plan for what happened during that request in SharePoint. So I can actually go in and see that we're going to do a clustered index insert, and I can view exactly what's going to happen, estimated cost, row size. I mean, if that's not useful, I don't know what is, right? Microsoft internally is pretty excited about this from a troubleshooting point of view. Like our guys in PSS that do troubleshooting, this is kind of going to really help them. When a customer has an issue, get us this data. We don't have to help you set it up. You've already got it. But obviously, this is helpful for your DBAs and for yourselves as well, okay? So what can we do with this data? How can we pull it out? I said we've got a couple of reports. They're not brilliant. We've got the search ones and the like top sites and the slowest pages reports. I'm just going to flick over to my Win 7 box. View full screen. And on here, I've got Excel open. 2010, completely vanilla here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say data, existing connections, and all this actually is just a standard SQL connection to that database. I've not done anything special. I've just given it the connection string details, username and password. Hit OK. And we can now see all those tables in there. And in this case, just get the list of things that I need to pull up here. We're going to scroll down to ULS trace log, hit OK. That's a view. We're going to say I want to create a pivot chart and pivot table report, OK. Obviously, it's reading a lot of data. You can see it down here. It's crunching away. And we're going to be able to use standard features in Excel to create charts and pivot this information. So let's do event ID and level. And I think we want level over here. No, other way around. There we go. So all of a sudden, let's just move that to there. We've got 85,000 critical ULS exceptions. How quickly does that take me to create that report, right? That's fairly cool straight away, right? If we go back to insert and we go slicer, we can take various entries in here. So I'm going to go with event ID, level, process name and message. And it's a bit messy because it's a small resolution. But what I can do now is I can say, right, I actually want to filter on critical. I want to filter on W3WP. I want to get everything that is 3355. And hold my mouse over there. That's the error message. I mean, this is a really crude demo, right? But I'm sure the Excel experts in the room or the people that have seen the wizards in your organization can see how this is a pretty powerful tool straight out of the box. Now, if we save that, this is where it gets pretty interesting. So I'm going to call it ULS2 because I've tested this before. Go back to Central Admin, and we're going to go into my Monitoring tab. Should have let this warm up a little bit. I'm actually going to upload this into the Administrative Reports library. Now, whether or not you would actually put it there is another story. But I can take this Excel spreadsheet now, stick it into the admin reports library, and we can use the standard out-of-the-box Excel previewing feature to render that report in the browser. It's dynamically updated because it's pointing back at that WSS content database, logging database, and we've got a report just like that without having to use SQL reporting services. So let's go to View Admin Reports. It's being a little slow at the moment. And we'll just say Add Document there. Browse. Fingers crossed. I mean, that took me 2 minutes, right? Anyone in the room can do what I've just done there. Probably quicker as well on their machines. Come on, here we go. So in Excel, if you get that far, it's going to work. If it dies straight away, you know it dies straight away. So I can be pretty sure this is going to render. Well, we've got the chart, and we can actually go in and we can close that filter off, close the other filter off, and I can do exactly what I was doing in the client, in the browser, and I've got a report out of WSS logging now. Pretty cool, right? Okay, guys, so I'm going to move on to the next demo. I think that's important to show you because we don't give you many reports out of the box. If average user can't do much with that as SharePoint admin, then nobody can, yeah? You don't need expensive third-party utilities to get this data for you. So we're going to flick to the Dev Dashboard demo. This is a nice quick one. Back to my 2010 box. PowerShell window. Quick tip for everyone. Obviously, I mentioned that it's easier to do this with STS-ADM than it is with PowerShell. I won't go into that, but I explained that yesterday. If you actually want to use STS-ADM for any reason, if you do it in the SharePoint Management Console, we already have STS-ADM, well, the directory and the path there. So there's no need to kind of navigate to the folder, so that's quite a nice little thing to do. What we're doing here is we're setting the property for Dev Dashboard to on demand. So now we can actually enable the Dev Dashboard and look at the output from that whenever we want. I mentioned that this is only for site collection admins and above, so average user won't see this. So on my site, if I go to it's being nice and fast for me today. Let's open up another tab just to slow things down a little more. It's been really fast today. We might have to come back to that one in a minute and pick up on that. Okay, it's kind of waking up. There we go. Let's attempt to connect to my portal that I've got in here. So operation completed successfully, so we should be good to go. And we can see up in the top right-hand corner here, we've got this little icon now. And that's the Dev Dashboard icon. So when we've got on demand set to true, basically, we'll see that up there. If we've got it set to on, it will always render in Dev Dashboard mode. If it's off, it won't. Notice down the bottom of the page, that's the bottom of the page. If I hit the icon, the page will do a post back, but now notice the scroll bar is a lot longer, and we've got the Dev Dashboard, and beautifully, just in the right timing, it's gone red as well, just to show a good example of something that's broken. So we can see the full request, the GET request, what happened, everything under the hood, the number of milliseconds that took to render. When your devs make something wrong and their web part breaks something here and you see it saying 5 seconds, 8 seconds, I had this conversation with someone earlier, you can say, hang on a minute, that's you. Very easy, right? Over to the right here, we've got details on the overall execution time. It's slow on this machine, right? The account, page checkout level, the correlation ID. We've all seen that. And we can actually see all the database queries that happened. And if I were to click on one of these, we can see the full query text for the query. We can see the call stack for the command that run it. We can actually see the I/O stats from SQL and the logical reads and writes and so on. So, I mean, again, if you can't do anything with that, then if you can't help troubleshoot your problem, then you're going to be completely lost. That is a really cool, powerful tool. Okay, and that was one of the top tools that Neil and Spence mentioned on the first day for the IT Pro side of things that you'll be able to use in your tool set. So moving on to the fourth demo very, very quickly, I want to show you the throttling feature. So web application management, if we go to my web app, general settings, resource throttling, you can all see here we've got list view threshold, 5,000 up the top there, allow object model override. I explained all these yesterday, so I won't go through it again. Threshold for admins is 20,000, and so on and so forth. So out of the box, these settings are set for you. If I go into what I'm going to have to do is, let's maybe try this on the Win 7 box. So I've got a list here, a large list. Now I'm logged in as a system account, and it's a local admin, so that isn't going to actually cause throttling to occur. So let me just try and log in as a different user. So we're not list throttling at the moment because we're exactly on 5,000 documents here. If I were to upload a document now, and I think we might be one below, I'm going to try a couple, what you'll see is it will throttle back, it will throw me an error message saying, hang on, you can't add any more documents to this view and actually look at that view. You need to create a new view or edit the current view. So we'll just go into this folder, documents, let's go upload document. Just go back. Okay, so we're still just under. There we go. So now we're getting the error message that says the request was not able to return results because there are too many items in the current folder. 5,000 items, so on and so forth. It explains what you should do. Pretty cool, right? That's the throttling from a list point of view, straight out of the box, really easy, works fine, don't need to do anything more with it. Just make sure that users are able to edit views and so on. It's going to be, I can see it causing contention where they don't really know what a view is and how to edit it, and this fires up, and it's actually surprisingly hard to figure out how to create or edit or filter a view. So you may need to do some work with them on this. Okay, so the final couple of things I wanted to show here was the SP Web Application HTTP Throttling Monitor command. So back to my 2010 box, and we've got a get commandlet here. And we need to, of course, we need to supply a SP2010. And we can see, as I showed you in the screenshot, our available megabytes and our ASP.NET request current values are set there. And these are our health score buckets. So 1,000 is a 0, 20 meg is 10. When we get to 10, we get throttled, and anywhere in between is part of that health score. And I mentioned that clients like Groove Workspace, Steve's got me going, SharePoint Workspace, will take that value and actually throttle back based on that. So what I'm going to do quickly, just to show that working, rather than killing the server, is do a set on that and just set it to some values that are a little higher. So 7 meg being the value that's as high, you know, the level 10 on the score. And this is for the application on port 81 there. Okay. So if I were to go back to the client, because I can't do it in Fiddler on the server, and now try and access my SP2010-81 web app. This user account probably doesn't have permissions, just to make life harder. It does. Refresh on there. Come on, play nicely. We'll just fire up Fiddler just to see if it's actually doing what it should do. I mentioned you should see the health score in the headers. So it's actually saying current health score there at the bottom is 5. So maybe I didn't set those values right. I'll go back and change it in a sec. But that's what I mentioned about the headers returning the current health score value. So Groove will actually adaptively sync based on that health score value. And any application, SharePoint Workspace, any other application can do that as well. Search uses this value to follow itself back. Okay. Let me just double check that I don't have a stupid value in here. 1611. It should be trying to kill itself right now in that sense. Let's try one more time and we'll call it a day if not. Okay. Maybe it's the account I'm logged in, maybe it's not. But for the sake of the demo, what you would get back is just a screen that says the server is too busy at the moment, and it would be a health score of 10, okay? There's no point in troubleshooting that. It's just a standard type of 503 error, but it's got a SharePoint master page wrapped around it. And then, obviously, we're not responding to GET requests anymore until the server health score level drops back down again. Okay? So that's quite a nice little feature straight away. When we do throttle, though, we should see in the event logs an entry. If I very quickly go back here, F5. We should see an entry in the event logs, like I mentioned, that shows us that we've actually started throttling and how many requests we've actually throttled. I don't know if we are getting them here. Let's just give this one more go. But what we will see in the event logs is an entry that says X number of requests have been throttled because the server memory is at 20 meg, or the number of requests in the queue are 400. So we can actually see why it was throttled and when in the event logs, okay? So finally, the very last thing I want to show you is my custom health rule. So what I've got here is a Visual Studio project. Again, code, IT pros. I'm not a developer, but I knocked this up fairly quickly. The whole idea in showing you guys this is not so that you can go off and do this yourselves. It's so that you can either tell the developers that it's easy to do, or some of us IT pros are dabblers, right? We like to play with this sort of stuff. This is to show you how easy it is to create a custom health rule. So I've actually got a rule here that overrides various different methods that are provided by this SP repairable health analysis rule class. And what I'm doing is I'm overriding the summary string and saying one or more web applications are in ASP.NET debug mode. And that's the summary we see in the health rule. The explanation, which says these following web config files are, the remedy, which explains how to remedy it, all the standard stuff you see with the health rules. And then I'm setting the error level here to warning. I'm saying it's a configuration issue. It falls under the configuration category. Again, all single lines of text. And these are the only couple of bits that take up a bit of space, take a bit of work, basically. We're saying it's going to execute daily. We're going to check all servers. It's going to be a timer service type, and we're going to repair automatically true. And then the check method itself is going to check we're joined to the farm, grab each web app, do a for each on that, loop through it, grab the IIS settings for that web app. It's going to grab the actual path to where the web configs are. I've hard-coded that for the sake of the demo. We're going to open the web config. We're going to open the section called compilation to check where debug equals true. We're going to create a Boolean that says if debug enabled is the value of that setting. If it is set to true, we're going to pass into the string builder details of the actual path to the web config so we can report on that. And we're going to set this ball to action rule equals true. So we're going to say it's true, we want to action the rule. And then down here we're saying if it's true, status is failed. If it's false, status is passed, right? Kind of fairly simple, easy to follow. And finally, if we want to do an automated repair, we can override this method here, and we can say, I'm doing the same stuff here to get the settings, but all I'm doing further down is I'm actually setting the section, the compilation debug section to false, and I'm saving that back to the web config, okay? And very, very quickly, if I just go to central admin, monitoring, view rule definitions, you can see we've got 30 configuration rules there. If I go to the next page, and my one isn't in there, shown as new. It's already compiled and the solution's ready to go. All I've got to do is deploy that. Again, very small amount of code there. There was really nothing to it, right? Deploy solution. Okay. Deployed. Quick refresh on this page. And now we've got 31. And now we've got this. One or more web applications are in ASP.NET debug mode. Okay? Now, for the sake of the demo, because it's going to try and auto-repair, because that's how I coded it, I'm just going to open this and just do a quick edit item and set that repair automatically option to false. Because what it will do is, as soon as I set the web config to debug equals true, I'll run the rule and it will fix it instantly, and you guys won't see it in the demo. So that's how quick it is. If I hit save, and then go back one, let's go up to here. Monitoring. Review problems. We can see I don't have my item listed there, right? If we open a web config, so 81 web config, do a search for debug, and it's set to false, right? And notice it's the wrong way around because I've already tested this, and it just inserts it at the first part of the there. So it's true. I'm going to have to open a new window. Go back to rule definitions, just to run it now. Hit my rule, run now. Hit close. We'll wait a couple of seconds. Whilst it's doing that, let's just close the web config. And there we go. One or more web apps are in ASP.NET debug mode. How easy was that, right? Even cooler. I click on it. Given that this would repair automatically, I hit repair automatically. It's even listing the exact web config there for me because I coded it in to do that. That's failing. I hit close. We do a refresh. After a few seconds, it's gone. Open the web config. Debug equals false. Easy peasy, 10, 20 lines of code? That was it for the demo. I hope it was worth me showing it, and I hope that that was really useful for you guys. I think the whole point in those demos was to show you that although out of the box for IT pros, the story isn't quite great with this, the logging database, and some of the reporting stuff that we've got there. It's really not hard for an IT pro to do this type of stuff and go, hit the ground running with it. Okay, so thanks for your time, and I'll let Steve get up here in a minute, and hopefully that was useful.